Oh, there were a bunch of people tied, like a bunch of people that tied named O'Brien, Demoro, Oliveri, rolls with the Keene family, for themselves, putting fake things, telling them to repeat fake things. I don't know whether all of them, Weathersfield police fake conversations be at the police station wasn't at all when I was a kid. And I found out about this because they did it as an adult. They pretended through the news then. And then, too, as an adult, I went down there. I didn't have one word about a conversation with anyone, let alone my life with the older Mendez police brother. He pretended I spoke with him, and he made a demonstration that he has roles with put a fake sentence and put note. He has roles in multiple police reports falsified, and there's none that can be responded to, and they're all saying different things and making confessions that way. Like with a Bob Chase is also involved with a Phil Cololo. Phil Cololo was involved with some Mendez police brothers, also with the New Britain Superior Court with some sexual and medical offenders of kids forced, other natures of organized crimes with the family members of judges and prosecutors and victims advocates, also involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists with the same house. I say terrorists, she put me in fake conversations with the World Trade Center attack with people named Scalora that they confessed and recorded involved with them with federal evidence as crimes too. When they did go down to the police, the kids who went down to the police station and spoke with them, they made them put fake ties, fake nature ties to me, planting evidences with the Cololo family, sequence shifts with them, with a Chris Walters. They're increasingly timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and people involved with intercities. All along Route 3 are people involved too, with men and women with the name Bobby and Bobby Jean with the intelligence family, and but they're implying it's with this. There are places next to the like there are strippers. One with the name Bobby Jean. I don't know her real name. She's involved with Weathersfield police chiefs retired, with a house near me, involved before they moved there. Now with two retired police chiefs and their intimate ties, and a whole bunch of people tied to them who, and some of them were trying to plant evidence. A bunch of people tied to them from other areas planted evidence on my street since I was a kid. I tried to put fake ties, fake nature ties to me, which is one of the things I didn't respond when what do you call it, yelled over a confession to me. And then I got him to confirm it on Facebook, though, Robert Rodriguez. Never, I saw him 2 times on my street, never communicated with him. And he confirmed that on Facebook. Then they took my Facebook page. Also, their roles with body doming spots are recorded on Facebook. In other words, and they're going back and forth when they listen to people say they're making confessions to me. These are people out like Eric Oliveri. I never tried to contact him in my life. He's planting evidences of people involved with the World Trade Center attack and all sides of Trinity College, and with some Joshua Stryker involved with a Dean Judd from Central Connecticut State University, his family intimate ties, and people associated with them, and Harper Courtson, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, before the World Trade Center attack. Then they were involved with predicate acts after it with a Joshua Stryker. I never had a word of conversation with a Joshua Stryker. He's planting evidences with Eric Oliveri and people in my area tied to him that say for themselves. He has rules with the FBI, also at the corner of Carriage Hill Drive, Fairlane Drive and Griswold Street, with people involved with shipping locations and fire departments and their campuses, and the rules with shopping centers and malls and names involved with that, planting fake things. And this is where they keep investigators already being and have been used remotely, criminally influenced, tactically delusions in their campuses. And they showed them they had to hide how they also use that remotely, a breaching method. It keeps countries A through Z blaming other things, others ourselves, rather than what our founders told us to blame the breaching method. So, like slavery, that was entrenched before America's founders were born, forced roles with it. Otherwise, that body was sensed, including if it was a majority of people, including if it was everyone, and it was adapted to. That's what they had declassified for themselves, too, because they didn't have free speech. So, in other words, they're using that. They have the expert, the names of the people, the sciences. Is it in the beginning of the Old Testament too? Per science, not per religion, because they have criminally foreign influence readings of religions at the campuses that are relative evidence, but evidences. But for example, the beginning of the Old Testament says only defend right here, where the names of the people of the sciences will come together in the part that comes before it. See why and how nations have obligation. Nations that understand what nuclear is about, they have obligations to stop countries from getting nuclear weapons and things, but they can't speak for it properly because they're fakes when it comes down to the organized crime. With the suburbs were designed for tactically to nature to cause negative value nature progressions, acts of nature, while being a landscape theater and having the only means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts of nature to self-value criminal and citizens natures of positive treatments, facts treatments, truth used for lies, facts used for lies, to screen between it, enforce roles, locations, areas, and states forcing the voices of leaders to entertain this. And that's why how, that's relative to where and how they're forcing us to entertain, where and how we can discern that. Forgiveness is so we focus on the guilt with the premises treatments, the actual premises treatments. You guys change and fake it, what everyone says. In other words, what everyone says. There are whole wire crime acts and methods that are self-valued by the names of the people of the sciences, like the FBI too. The names of the people of the law. They have wire ML crime acts and methods. They have crime act methods using databases, self-valued the way the breaching method showed them, needs to use them, and means to use them. The one that used them but since before computers, with that identity of relativity / hyperrelativity to ourselves, replaced, like for example, with nature's communications, with all the revelations that come with where and how we have two eyes, and with the same color eyes. And there are the colors that the breaching method reassigned. Even more revelations come with that and things to discern. But right where we have that in demonstration of a breaching method, nature itself, we have also our founders that had to classify for themselves for us to understand that and how and why no one had free speech and everyone had to pretend other. Otherwise be sensed, including if they were a body as a majority of people, including if they were everyone. That's the first thing to understand when there's sick, crazy laws like that, and against Native Americans at the same time. And they weren't even. There are proofs that Native Americans and that our colonists, the colonists who coupled with James Madison and his plan and with the Native Americans. That's why they referred to, one of the reasons we're directed to refer to them plural as James Madison singular. And this is before he was a president. His plan was to counter-extort George Washington and the rest of the presidents / chiefs and the rest of the colonists and the rest of the Native Americans. Because they couldn't get the slavery unentrenched. They didn't want anything to do with the slavery. All exceptions, exception nature that appear to be in demonstration of other, they come with demonstration / S of the same thing / S, but we have that replaced. This preaching method already made self-valued roles, using our founders' words, leaving out what they said, and using the expertise on that. The names of the people of sciences, like the people of American history, they have obligations to have this known clear. Instead, they use not even our founders, because our founders, the only president who was our founder was James Madison. That's what we're directed to understand too. Then even when he was a president, he still didn't have free speech. If you don't understand that, why you can't explain the Monroe Doctrine. One can't explain that without really angering, not just because of that, but for example, really angering Native American people. have to understand how Native Americans were fighting with Native Americans, and they coupled with in Collins, the couple. We're supposed to explain how them and no one have free speech. We're supposed to explain president / chief is about hyper additional nature. It's not one or the other. Boolean logic has them like that too. It's either diplomacy or war. No, we have the whole predicate acts to the facts methods. All these sides have delusions too, right where they have right where they have criminally foreign influence, fact, cheap nature, quality aspects in nature, like the people with psychiatry. You know how many crime acts and methods they have? Readings of statutes, precedents, or rules. A whole wire crime acts and methods. Natures of all the other ways we're gonna discern how to look at organized crime, criminal enterprises, and terrorists. See them all of a sudden using words like extremism and radical. Still sequence shift self-value. Still nature self-valued as criminal insidious as natures of positive and or negative, and as collusions to keep that identity of relativity to ourselves of the breaching method and of nature itself, where nature is also positive on itself. Keep that from our discernment too. Keep a whole bunch of the breaching methods causing roles with a whole bunch of negative value nature progressions, acts, and nature's acts like predicate acts. Know how there are wire crime acts and methods. The whole police and courts are still putting fake transcripts in databases. I caught them. They're recorded various ways. They'll tell you. Their people and their family members, Connecticut courts, and their family members at West Hartford locations before the World Trade Center attack. They're involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, foreign domestic military too. Involved with Eric Burgess. I don't know the girl who tried to pretend in other words, that he was lying about himself and others. And then the other girl from the Hartford court said he was going to be in trouble because he confessed about the Britain's court. And I didn't even tell him. I were a whole bunch of confessions about those spots and people from my town, intercities with that spot through time. As the people on my street right now involved with the name Colo and a Phil Colo. I don't know where Phil Colo lives. He brought up by a Bob Chase as one of the ones involved too with these Mendez brothers and other people tied to them, next to Fox Connecticut News and next to WFSB, involved with retired police chiefs too and their families and intimate ties, putting fake things in transcripts and databases, falsified police reports, roles of police that are refusing to identify themselves. And they confessed the name Scalora involved with them with identity theft, fraud, slanders, predicate acts on my street with them. A cop who forced himself into my house too. I don't even know his name yet. We're going to get his name. He gave me a card. I don't know what happened to that card. In other words, they switch names too in falsified police reports. I can't get one police report. Then they got another arrest, all these arrests. All these times. This is a mass scale. I've caught them doing this against people on a mass scale. A whole bunch of people and their educators too. That's why. You guys can't afford to have discern what I caught them doing. Right through kids' whole education, not just my own. Now get them on paper. I want a response for the principal child abuser's confessions. The police are changing and faking and hiding things. And with the news at the same time. And with the other people with the news sources. The difference with the different news places, there are different ways to keep everyone like that. And that's why you're going to leak a whole bunch of things about fire departments and everything else. You're going to bring up all these different countries that you guys brought in. I'm talking now to the people in the background who tell them, in other words, getting in the way. And you pray. Get them on paper, one name in sequence, please. General King. Have the O'Brien's family with the FBI. Don't let them coach them. The FBI, whatever. There are other agencies too. They might have roles with CIA for the syntax of their people on Facebook. And with the roles with what they're doing with the next to the state capitol. A bunch of people tied to a Mark Violet and a Mike Violet. I don't know their names. Foreign and domestic military. People involved with Rick Cianfaglione too. Put fake things in databases, fake ties, fake nature ties to me. And with my educators, I never had a class with them. They made that one class exception with Mr. Neville is increasingly involved with the state judicial branch and conjunctions to it. Involved with organized crimes with kids. Not legitimately with the intelligence community. in those spots where he said he lived. Repeated that spot. It's increasingly brought up too, like people with the name Cintron from Puerto Rico, involved also with Sandy Hook campuses, and more people recorded tied to Adam Alonzo and intercities campuses with all kinds of people with like a whole bunch of people that work with Institute of Living in Hartford, Connecticut, and lawyers with them, and people that with UConn tied to them in Hartford, Connecticut. They have rules with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, putting fake conversations with people in databases, forging other doctors' names, and roles with the differences of guilt because they have foreign and domestic countries. They have a Russian woman reportedly fell on her head, as they have roles with foreign and domestic military with the World Trade Center attack and with investigations of it, where they have collusions with organized crimes with the World Trade Center attack years before it. A whole bunch of people with the name DeMauro too made confessions tied to that spot. I know these are people that sought me out to make confessions, to make fake ties to me with people that went to my grammar school, and like this O'Brien family, interstates, intercities. They have people with Cromwell involved with the name O'Brien. They might be trying to make them look like they're undercover too. They were the way they had a picture of it being beat up by the police or something like that. Because these are roles also with the Sandy Hook prison there, involved with crimes with their patients and criminals before they were caught, and with medical offenders there, involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, intercities, and their roles with like Pakistan. In other words, and then the guy changed his name, Pakistan, Italy, as one of the ones involved with Town Line Drive and South State Highway. Like senators, mayors, increasingly people tied to a former Mayor Gold. I never, in other words, they had his daughter put fake things in databases by doing a little trick by first having her yell at me out of nowhere. I didn't even know who she was. And this was after, like a year after, I think it was like a year or two after, like one time, like everyone would, in other words, wouldn't let me learn. When I think I was in second grade. It was like, it was supposed to, apparently it was the first year they had the Earth Day. Something to do with that. Her father, but it was also other mayors and their conjunctions and people, other natures of conjunctions to themselves and their family members. There's a Ruth involved with the same people involved with World Trade Center predicate acts, involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and who forced Saudis to collusions with them, with these Mendez police. I said a sentence to my Saudi friend, and one of the Mendez police put it on one of the falsified police reports. He amended to multiple falsified police reports involved with the Bob Chase. People involved with the Bob Chase who wouldn't allow me to read the falsified police report. I know it's falsified, and they forced the principal child abuser, leader of kids, and I still can't get a response. There are a bunch of judges and people involved with whiting forensics too through time, involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids when I was a kid too, with the news planting evidences. Other people are involved with Facebook too, with digital crimes and whiting forensics through time. There's worse than criminal incompetence, every identity of title, the names of the people of sciences, black people, here. Get them on paper, one name and sequence. Please, General King, please do what's right. Get the Wethersfield people on paper. Police on paper and get me off the paid conversations with the Mendez police. Have them repent with the ones with the Saudi relations through Central Connecticut State University and the other military involved. Get them off the paid conversations with me and on paper quick, so I don't have to keep speaking about it. You guys brought up the use of the location /S, where people are going to go, intercities, and with the confessions that the breaching method, you guys are making confessions to the breaching method clearer than day. You guys can't explain how the breaching method designed the suburbs tactically denatured. You guys pretend it's actually legitimately debatable that and how the people of New York City clearer than day have a torture, extortion, back teenager slavery method upon them. In other words, we're not going to have to vote on things We have the means right here. There are means besides diplomacy with a bunch of punks and only capable of being that through these campuses or war. We're going to show the predicate acts with facts. Get them on paper, one name in sequence. Get me off the fake conversation with WFSB and have them, in other words, a whole bunch of natures of organized crime and names they brought up at once. Intercities. You guys even have murders and roles with that and threats that I'm not even getting to speak about yet because I have the interbranch roles with it. And you can't get it on paper because you're going to show. I told them too. I warned them how I caught them. I knew they were going to have to, I knew they were going to do that. Just be totally fake worse. And World Trade Center predicate acts. Connecticut had roles with people with Washington, D.C. Two speech class teachers I have has roles with a bunch of people that in my classes repeating fake things, changing and faking what's actually said and the actual value of it. As their roles, two speech class teachers have collusions with names at the state corrections offices and state judicial branch offices, also with campuses, and all the way along Route 175 from the founding locations of Old Wethersfield. And their roles with conversation behind my back with Mike Pandolf, who has roles with all sides of criminal and civil cases and depositions with the people intercities. And my area involved ongoing with the wire crimes of the police refusing to police forms, refusing to identify themselves legitimately. In multiple courts, judges and prosecutors and their family members, including victims advocates, involved with overt criminal enterprises and multiple child abusers, leaders of kids, years apart, including sexual and medical, first forced. And as the ones rolls with those cliques, everyone's speaking through others. There's a Mike Kerr and a Jerry Kerr. I only know them seeking me out to make confessions to me and to my family. They change fake what everyone says. And then, in other words, with judges and prosecutors, overt criminal enterprises and private ones. Oh, we're police, we make it up. All right, get it on paper. Like, in other words, these are people with the courts involved with the child abusers, leaders of kids years apart. Even if that was made up, they have roles with that, and with the Facebook page of New Britain Superior Court, and with the FBI director, because that was after the World Trade Center attack. This is before Facebook was there. People involved with Facebook and their campuses too. Like I believe it was one of them looked just like a Celeste Wells in an advertisement for Facebook is involved too with confessions of people tied to body dumping spots next to the state judicial branch offices. Also involved with the Keene name. I never had a personal conversation with Keene. And they put me to make it look like someone signed me up apparently behind my back to run for president. But I never got to even make a speech. And don't judge me by the speech class because you guys were making confessions before. People were making confessions before that. There's having fake punks who will go halfway into conversations, but they'll hide the nature and prevent the nature of sophistication to make the proper sophistication. Where and how we have all these different countries here, Russians, Ukraine, people from Korea. That's what they're bringing in with my two speech class teachers. Also made roles with their confessions, their roles with drugs and medicines crimes, and with psychiatry involved. They have a bunch of people with Harvard Hospital involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids with names next to campuses too, as ones involved with two speech class teachers I had in high school involved with conversations behind my back. I never had a personal conversation with either one of them. One of them said to my class that he was a partner of a detective, Dylan. I never had a personal conversation with him either. They were also involved with the Bernal Turnpike and the Saulstein Highway and its conjunctions. But in other words, intercities, they brought up all these things and confessions. And they made the people with threats from other areas with the interbranch family members forging and switching names of multiple police departments and bringing it up. In other words, lying about, they're saying that because that, and they won't, in the background, they're saying whatever. They have obligations to get on paper with Judge Napolitano, too. And in other words, Ray Colo and Joe Lombardo and Joe DeMoro. There's also Joe Lombardo and other people with the name Lombardo. I don't even know their name. They know my name. And his educators. Joe Lombardo has educators also involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids. They tried to put me in a in a classroom with him. I left that classroom. And get them on paper with my neighbors too, with the multiple police departments. You don't want to leave it on just the Wethersfield police. Then we're going to go to the other military too. Not you. I'm talking to whoever. Get the Wethersfield police on paper and get me off the fake conversations, please. General King, like these Mendez police, they're also intercities next to Fox Connecticut News, involved with the FBI and with the timing of it, and people all along Hangdog Lane, where it runs into Two Rod Highway, conjunctions into that, like Route 3. But Wethersfield Pizza, too. They have more people involved with Central Connecticut State University in the Brighton, Connecticut, involved next to the state judicial branch offices, like with people with Wethersfield Pizza House. Has rules with wire crimes with Wethersfield police, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me. That Stephen Stockwell has been pretending with people behind my back at campuses, and with who apparently his wife and other intimate ties she had too, and people like John Maiano were involved with them too, with the Elm Streets in Wethersfield and Rocky Hill, and their conjunctions to that, like Route 3 in the state judicial branch offices. Black pupils. These are also people next to the state corrections offices involved with all kinds of organized crimes with them in the form of federal evidences crimes, wire crime acts and methods, all kinds of, identity theft, fraud, slander, sequence shifts. As people involved with spots with names at the World Trade Center next to it the night before, other ways before that. And then in the Ninth Circuit Court itself with a sequence shift right before the World Trade Center attack from inside the court. And both names on both sides of that case and their sources brought up also involved in Intercities, Connecticut, involved with predicate acts against me and others. But they're also just changing and faking everyone's communications with each other on a mass scale. Oh, hell. In other words, get them on paper.